Hello book lovers, my name is Natalie and I love books, so let's talk about them. Alright, okay, so I'm sure that you guys noticed that I was gone for a little while. I decided to take some time off because I was editing my videos and there was just this frenetic quality to it, in my opinion. There was a weird quality. I get really excited about books and I realized that I could not talk about books without notes. So now I have notes. I'm back. I planned out my month of January and hopefully that will take out some of that weird, where I talk ahead of myself and that kind of thing. So hopefully that's taking care of that. And I think we're just going to go ahead into the December wrap up. I'm trying also to make my videos shorter. So, all right. So let's start with what I read in December. So December was a good month for me. I read 16 books, although a fair few of them were graphic novels, which is not a problem for me. I just don't read a lot of graphic novels. So I always kind of feel like I'm cheating when I'm reading them. But let's go through what I read and what I thought about them because there's quite a few. So I started December off with the Bromance Book Club. I always keep wanting to say the Bromance Club, but it's the Bromance Book Club by Lyssa K. Adams. I also tend to want to say Andrews, but it's Adams. And this one was a 5-star for me, and I'm looking down at my notebook so to help me out here. This one was a 5-star for me. I thought it was cute, it was sweet, it was kind of a second chance thing. So what happens is this baseball player, Gavin Scott, his marriage is in trouble because he finds out that his wife has been faking it in bed. So he throws a big old hissy fit and she gets mad at him after about a month and throws him out. So again, it's kind of a second chance romance. I thought it was very well done, especially with the fact of, sometimes when you're in a long-term relationship, you can kind of grow apart. Like the people that you were coming into the relationship are not the people that you are now, or maybe, you lost yourself somewhere along the way. So I thought this did a great job of that. It had some really funny scenes. I thought they were funny, especially whenever it came to like the book club. That was funny. That was a good time. So, but I thought this was nice, and there was no cheating in it. Checking. I don't think there was any cheating in it, and I'm not a big fan of second chance romances with cheating. So, of course, I don't know. Sometimes I read a book and I think it's fine. So. All right, so the second book that I read in December was The Dark Crystal Creation Myths, which I gave a 4-star to. I really enjoyed The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance on Netflix. So after that, I really wanted to read the comics. There's some that are set beforehand and some that are set afterward. So I read the first volume, which was a 4-star. Volume 2 was another 4-star for me. Then in between that and the Age of Resistance comic, which by the way, if you don't know, so the Dark Crystal Creation Myths kind of explains how Thra came to be. It's kind of like the creation myth of Thra and how the Urskeks got there, what happened, how the Urskeks became the Uru and the Skeksis, and kind of all that. And it was really interesting to see that, as far as the Gelfling were concerned, like the Urskeks had kind of always been there. And then when they split up, the Skeksis have kind of always been there. So I thought that was really interesting. That kind of lends some information to, this world and the Gelflings part in it and the Skeksis part in it and all of that. Because I felt like there were some parts that I didn't understand when I was watching The Age of Resistance. And I had gone back and I had watched the movie, even though that takes place after The Age of Resistance. But I still felt like I was missing something. So that helped with that. Then after reading those 2 volumes, I DNF'd rather, Dark Witch by Nora Roberts. I DNF'd, so I try not to give ratings when I DNF. But I thought I would stop and just read you my notes so you can understand how I felt about it. Real quick, this is about a girl so it's about two things. So it's about this family and this witch, and she is sought after by this evil guy. If you've read Year One, it's kind of a similar type of thing. And later on down the line, there's, what was the main character's name? See, that's how Iona something or other, and she goes to Ireland. She decides, her grandmother's told her, you're a witch. She can light up a candle, which was very much used again in Year One. And she goes and she seeks out her cousins, and they decide to band together to fight this evil guy. It's supposed to, I would have been okay if the fantasy were well done, but the relationships were so fantastical. I kept reading because I was hoping I would get more out of this. And let me read you my notes while I was reading it and give you some idea of how I felt. On page 48, I was like, well, that escalated quickly. Is no one even going to question each other's motives? At that point, I think they were just all like, hey, I'm your cousin. Okay, cool. Come on, you'll live with us. I didn't like that. Page 96, I was like, yikes, I feel we're stereotyping a little bit. I really felt like the Irish people were all characters. So the problem I'm having is that Iona is supposed to have a thing for Boyle, and they have no chemistry. So the main couple in this book had no chemistry at all. It was so boring. And for me, it was disconcerting. I wrote, I've never read a couple that I didn't want to get together, in my memory anyway. Then I got upset about a phrase. He yanked me in and kissed me until my brains leaked out of my ears and the top of my head blew clean off. Really? Really now? It may have been written in that way, but I'm not feeling the chemistry. And these two have nothing together, at least not in the writing, although I'm not sure why Iona speaks like an overenthusiastic 5-year-old. And don't get me started on Branna. On page 144, I decided I didn't like the characters. On 172, I wondered, do I keep reading it or do I DNF it? I wanted to know what was happening in the fantasy plot line, what was going to happen in the plot line, but I'm afraid that there isn't going to be a whole lot to that. And then on page 186, apparently I decided to keep going, although I finally decided it was about the language I didn't like. It's kind of like Nora Roberts heard a couple of phrases. She went to Ireland, heard a couple of phrases, and so she kept using them and using them and using them. Everyone sounded the same to me. And I think on page 216 is when I decided to DNF it. I didn't care for it at all. The characters were wooden. It was boring. You knew that, the 6 main characters were all going to wind up together. It wasn't for me. So the next book after that I read was The Dark Crystal Creation Myths, Volume 3, which I gave 4 stars to. Like I said, I thought they were well done. Volume 3 was kind of like an add-on. I didn't even realize there was a Volume 3. I feel like it could have stopped at Volume 2. But it was interesting enough. Then Dark Crystal, I read Age of Resistance 1, which actually is not the same thing as the Netflix series. It's not like a where they make it into a comic. It's the story of Ordon. Well, it's the story of him and I believe he's supposed to kill a spitter. That was his claim to fame in the series. So like I said, I gave that one a 3. It wasn't 4. It was kind of boring. I kind of, it was all right. I don't know if I'll read the second one. Let's see. Then I read Tessa Dares, The Governess Game. I gave that one a 4-star. For me, this one wasn't as great as the Duchess deal. Granted, I was reading this off of coming off the heels of Dark Witch, and I was kind of feeling a little slumpy. Tessa Dare is great at writing chemistry and that kind of thing. I just didn't feel it as much in this book. It was cute, the intimate scenes were hot, but it just lacked something that her other books have. And this, I still liked it, still gave it 4 stars, but it wasn't, a lot of her books tend to be 5 stars for me, and this one just wasn't. So This is about Alexandra Mountbatten. She's the one who does the clocks, if you've read the Duchess deal. Anyway, her job, she goes around, you know, she's not a lady. She has a job. She sets clocks for people to Greenwich time. And she shows up at the house of Chase. What is his name? Chase, who's about to be a duke, basically. He's just inherited stuff, and he's also inherited, along with that dukedom, 2 children. And all of these children keep running off all of the governesses. And she comes in and she basically reams him out, Chase, and he decides that she would make a great governess for the children. You know, it doesn't go much more than that. She needs a job. He's got a job. He's going to pay handsomely. So, you know, she works for him, and that's kind of how that goes. I did think it was a really nice touch that, you know, I think in the Duchess deal and I'm pretty sure that scene was in there because I remembered it when I was reading it. This book is where they're all in a bookstore, and she's picked up a book that, you know, it's used and she can afford. And then this guy runs into her, and they wind up switching books somehow, and it turns out that it was this guy. So I thought that was a cute touch. So, you know, probably why I gave it 4 stars. So after that, I read The Last Town, which was the 3rd in the Wayward Pines series. I've owned that for like ages now, and I've just never read it. I don't want to tell about... You know, if you haven't read the other 2, listen, you're going to get a little bit spoiled if you can, you know, listen to this. So anyway, just to warn you. But so this is the end, you know, this is how things wrap up in Wayward Pines. So, you know, Ethan has just told the town that there's no other humans out there. They're the last humans, and that the Abbeys, the aberrations, are coming for them, basically. You know, the guy... I already forget his name, but the guy David Pilcher, who started the whole community, you know, he's opened up the gates, and now the Abbeys are coming for them. And they do in this book. That's not a spoiler. That happens like almost at the beginning. I gave it 4 stars. At first, I'm going to be honest, I gave it 3 because I was upset at the ending. The ending leaves you hanging. It's almost a cliffhanger, and I didn't enjoy that. If you're gonna finish it up, just finish it up. Don't leave it sitting there for nothing. You know, just to make us go, you know, because I really did enjoy this, and I would have loved to have more books, especially because I didn't feel like this really resolved that much. I had read a couple of other reviews that said it felt a little rushed, and I kind of agree with it. I mean, it's still good, and it's fast-paced, and that's why I read Blake Crouch, because I enjoy his fast pace. I mean, it's not literature, but the way he writes, it's like watching a movie, and I love that. So, you know, I really like that. And it does kind of just, you know, end everything up. I wasn't happy with how they decided to, like, live in this world, or what they decided to do to resolve everything. I thought that there could have been so many other ways it could have gone. But, again, it was still a 4-star book. So then after that, I read The Lost Causes of Bleak Creek. This is by Rhett, McLaughlin, Neal, and Lance Rubin. If you watch Good Mythical Morning, then you'll know who these guys are. Except, is Lance in there? I don't know. Anyway, The Lost Causes of Bleak Creek. So this is a story set in North Carolina about 3 friends. You know, they're making a movie. These boys, Rex, Leaf, and Alicia. They're making this movie, and Alicia gets sent to this reform school, which has a good reputation with the parents, but with kids, it's kind of iffy. And you know, these 2 guys are thinking how they can, you know, they find out some things about this reform school. I really don't want to spoil it. And they realize they need to save their friend. This was so surprisingly good. I gave it 5 stars. I wanted to reread it like almost as soon as I got to the end, which hasn't happened in ages. The Bromance Club was another one that I wanted to reread almost as soon as I got into the end. It was really well done. It was well written. It was fun. It had that paranormal type thing that I love in it. And, you know, for someone who's lived in North Carolina for just the last 20 years, it was so much fun to just see those regional things. People, you know, every place, every region has its own like culture, its own personality, and I loved that they had that in there. You know, there was nostalgia there, just all of that, and I loved it. I had a great time with this book. The next book that I listened to, actually, this was an audiobook, was You Do You, Proud to Be Fabulous. This was by Tan France. It was basically just you know, kind of like spoken essays or talks given by people, you know, different people in the LGBT community, and it was a lot of fun. Some of them were really funny, some were really touching. It was great. I had a great time. It's definitely a good time. It was a free one, you know, and I think for a free one that it was wonderful. It was 4 stars. I rated it 4 stars because I thought it was great. And then we had The Adventures of Tom Stranger, Interdimensional Insurance Agent, written by Larry Correia. This was also another free, this is also another free audiobook. And let me tell you, I should have liked it. It was over the top. It was over the top sci-fi. You know, one of my favorite books is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I reread that one for, you know, so many times before I realized that there were other installments. So this should have been a good time. But apparently the writer did 2 things that really turned me off. One, he inserted himself in it, which is very cringy. And 2, he didn't just insert himself in it. He made himself like a big deal in it. Okay. And 2, he decided that he needed to go on and on about his politics in it, which tended to be right wing. Now, I'm going to be honest. I am liberal, but I live in a very conservative area. You know, this is not like this is the first time I've heard this stuff. However, this kind of jabs he was making, I looked this guy up. And Mr. Correia, I hope you understand that a lot of the jabs you were making, you're basically making at yourself. Especially the one about fat people. I've seen your pictures now. I am fat. I make no bones about it, but I've also seen your pictures, sir, and you also are fat. Also, I did not like, you know, some of the other things, like you can't be whatever you want to be, the snowflakes tell you, blah, blah, blah. Just shut up. Yeah, you can if you want to work hard enough, you know, but I didn't enjoy this guy. So this was 1 star. And generally, you know, would I have given it 0 stars? No, because I wanted to make sure. 1 star is I hated it. Generally, no rating means that I DNF'd it. So I wanted to make sure, you know, it was terrible. Don't even listen to it. It was bad. The next book I read was The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. Turn things around a little bit. I had been trying to read this like all year long. This is about this person, and, you know, he's stuck in this loop where he has to go through 8 different people's bodies until, you know, and find a killer, or he winds up having to do the whole loop again, start right back over and do it all again. So this one, it would have been 5 stars. All right. It would have been 5 stars, except I figured out the twist. I figured out the big one. And I didn't realize I had figured out the twist. You know, one of the things that I love doing with mystery books is I love going through them, and I love like, ooh, it's going to be this. Ooh, it's going to be that. Or, ooh, what is he doing? You know, especially in this situation, you're kind of trying to figure out what's going on. And I figured it out before it came. And then when it came, it wasn't such a big deal. Because I was reading reviews because I was like, what is the big deal here? You know? And a lot of people were just blown away by it, and maybe I've read too many whodunits. I did figure out the twist before the end came. That said, I thought it was still very well written. It was fast paced. It was a good whodunit. I did not figure out the killer in the end. So that was a good time. you know, I had never even entertained the person who eventually did the actual killing as a possibility. So that was fantastic. That part was fantastic. It's just the other twist. I'd figured it out. So that's the only reason it didn't get 5 stars. Then I listened to Even Tree Nymphs Get the Blues by Molly Harper. This is about a Norwegian tree nymph, a holder, and she goes to Mystic Bayou, which is apparently in a series of books that Molly Harper wrote. I mean, it was a romance. So, you know, she meets this guy and that kind of thing. Kind of learning to trust again, type of romance. It's okay. It was a 3 stars. I mean, not that much happened other than that, but apparently it is a novella, so there's only so much you can do in a novella. So I understand that. Then I listened to Foreverywhere, which was another one of those free audiobooks. I was trying to get in a lot of really short audiobooks. This was also a 3-star audiobook. It was cute. It's kind of like a fairy tale type of thing. You know, like a rock fairy tale. So there was that, you know, this unicorn is going through and trying to find bandmates, and then they're trying to, win this prize. And then there's this other band, you know, the usual, plot of a, band story, I feel like. And then the very last book that I tried to read in December was Tell Me How You Really Feel, which is written by Amina Safi. So whenever I watched reviews on it, they kept, you know, different reviewers kept talking about, different booktubers kept talking about how this was kind of supposed to be like Rory and Paris. And I saw the Rory part, you know, but I did not see the Paris part. I just, you know, I think I got about halfway through or close to halfway through, and I was just kind of like, you know, there would be some cute parts, but you know, Rachel felt like she was working so hard to dislike Sana. And I really didn't like that part. She didn't, you know, I didn't feel like she had a good reason to dislike her. I'm sure she's going to work around to somehow working it into her mother leaving, that kind of thing. So quick thing about the plot, you know, it's about Sana and Rachel, and Rachel is trying to complete this this movie project, this film project, and she winds up having to have Sana, her basically mortal enemy, work with her. Like I said, it was okay. I wanted to like it, but this was just not for me. It was a little lackluster. So let's put it that way. It's a little lackluster. So I think that was everything. Yeah. So that was everything that I read in December. Like I said, it wasn't too bad. It was actually 15, you know, 13 if you take out the 2 I DNF'd. So it wasn't too bad for December. Usually I don't read a lot in December, so I did a pretty good job this year, or last year rather, in December. And I think that's everything. You know, let me ask you, what was your favorite book you read in December? Did you have a favorite? You know, let me know down in the comments. Okay, guys, thank you all so much for watching. If you found something in this video you liked, hit that thumbs up. And if you're enjoying my content, consider subscribing. I'll leave some videos in the end card to help you decide. Again, thanks so much for watching. Bye!